Welcome again to Joe Stunner Boxing. On Saturday, we have the WBC interim light heavyweight title being contested between Oleksandr Gvozdyk and David Benavidez, who makes his debut at 175. Now, let's go through Gvozdyk first of all. Let's talk a little bit about him. He's an orthodox 37-year-old Ukrainian fighter, former WBC champ, 6'2" tall, long established, very good amateur career. Won the title in 2018, the WBC light heavyweight title. In 2018, he beat Adonis Stevenson, who was a long reigning champion. Stopped him in 11 rounds, knocked him out. And in fact, Stevenson suffered a brain clot, I think, had to have an operation, recovered, but obviously had to retire. And it was a very, very good win for Gvozdyk. He really sort of arrived with that victory. Prior to that, in 2015, 2016, he had been fighting, decent people and stopping them. Those sort of B-, B-level fighters. Like he stopped Najib Mohammadi in 2 rounds. Tommy Kapense stopped him in 6. Although he was on the floor early on in that fight. I think it was the first round. He also fought Isaac Chalemba, who retired after 8 rounds. So he sort of prepared himself for that world title fight well against, like you should always do, against good B-level fighters. And then he took his chance in 2018 when the chance came along. And he took it, 11 round stoppage over Adonis Stevenson. Very impressive performance. Outboxed Stevenson, ground him down and stopped him. And Gvozdyk, although he's got quite a high KO percentage, he's not what you would call a one-punch banger. He doesn't try to be. He boxes well. He's a good box fighter. Now, he made one standard defence, but then he ran into, in 2019, he ran into Artur Beterbiev. And this time it was him who was ground down in 10 rounds. Beterbiev, we know all about Beterbiev. Even now, every fight he's ever had, he's stopped the opponent. Very, very tough, physically strong, imposing pressure fighter. But it has to be said, Gvozdyk was winning rounds earlier on. He looked good. Again, it was this boxer-puncher thing going on. But you did get the impression, at least I did, I remember watching that thinking, can he do it for 36 minutes? Well, the answer was no, because he got done. He got floored 3 times in the 10th round and stopped. And no real shame in that. I mean, Beterbiev is what he is. I think he'd beaten Gvozdyk in the amateurs as well. So he kind of had Gvozdyk's number. But I did get the feeling that Gvozdyk, once he was under the hammer, he did kind of, quit, is that too strong a word? He kind of lost heart, so to speak. He got mentally ground down, as so many fighters do, by Beterbiev, who just puts that solid, consistent pressure on the opponent and gradually, just saps their will almost, saps their energy and their willpower. But anyway, Gvozdyk decided after that fight that he would retire, which was a little bit of a surprise considering that's his only defeat. Well, he didn't fight for about 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. And then he came back early in 2023. And in 2023, he had 3 fights. One, a little 6-round run around against kind of like a rust cheddar against a journeyman. Then he fought Ricards Bolotniks, who's a reasonable European level fighter. Stopped him in 6 rounds. And Bolotniks was, for a second comeback fight after several years out, was a decent-ish opponent. Not too bad, I suppose. And then he fought a guy called Isaac Rodriguez towards the end of I think September last year. Stopped him in 2 rounds. So he had a pretty good 2023. 3 comeback fights, 3 victories, no problem. But that does not really set you up for a fight with David Benavidez, who at 27 years of age is 10 years Gvozdyk's junior. Now, Benavidez, we know about 28 wins, 24 KOs, no draws, no defeats. Moved up from super middleweight, 6'2", same as Gvozdyk, orthodox, same as Gvozdyk. This is his debut at 175, but he says he can still make 168, but I don't think he'll be found lacking in terms of size at 175. His last fight was against Demetrius Andrade, who he stopped in 6 rounds. Andrade retired after 6, previously undefeated in 32. Prior to that, Benavidez beat Caleb Plant on a unanimous 12-round decision, beat the living crap out of Plant in the second half of the fight. Plant, actually, give him credit, he hung tough in that fight. He really did. And prior to that, David Lemieux got done in 3 rounds. I mean, people like Lemieux and Andrade were never super middleweights anyway. And a lot of people, have said about Benavidez, he was the man to beat Canelo. I do think Canelo avoided him, which is strange because I always thought I would make Canelo a favourite over Benavidez. But I do think he avoided him. In fact, I think Canelo also avoided another guy who's jumped to 175, which is David Morrell. And I think if Benavidez, Morrell, if they'd stayed at 168 and there'd been a little round robin of fighters, including Canelo, I think Morrell would have been the one left standing, not Benavidez. But it is what it is. This is all hypothetical stuff. We now find ourselves at 175. Benavidez, I think his youth, his confidence is up there. He's got good skills. Like I say, certainly in terms of dimensions, he's 6'2", so he can carry that. He should carry the weight quite well. I don't see it as being too much of a jump. And I think Gvozdyk, in a sense, is an ideal opponent for this interim belt. I think Morrell, by the way, just to digress a little bit, he's also fighting for a belt at 175. And I think the idea is probably from both Benavidez and Morrell's point of view is, we're not waiting on you to Canelo. You don't want to fight us, fair enough. But by moving up to 175, they'll maybe pick up a couple of bargaining chips, maybe lure Canelo up to 175 again. He's been up there twice, of course. Stopped Kovalev, or the remnants of Sergei Kovalev, and then lost to Bivol on points. So I think it makes sense for both those guys to move to light heavyweight. But I think Gvozdyk's a good opponent for Benavidez, because Gvozdyk, even though he had those 3 comeback fights last year, at 37, you've got to ask, how much does he have left? How much ambition does he have left? If he gets dragged into the trenches by Benavidez, what's going to happen? Is he going to really want to go there? Can he ask questions of Benavidez? Can he use all that experience? It did appear when he fought Beterbiev that he lost a bit of heart as the fight went on. I think that's a big question mark over his head, and I think he will ask questions of Benavidez. I don't expect this to be a blowout, but I definitely think that Benavidez, with his youth and ambition, I have to make him favourite. Benavidez won the WBC interim super middleweight title prior to just moving up. And he also won the vacant belt, I think, earlier on in his career. It's a strange one, because didn't he get stripped for some reason? Did he fail a test? No, I might be wrong about that. I can't remember how it went. But I know he was WBC super middleweight champ for a while. And then he lost it, and then he regained it. There's something weird going on. I should have checked this before I started doing the video, but I know he's been a champion before. But I think at 175, to pick up a second belt, even though it's only the interim one, that would be an interesting, like I say, a little bargaining tool to have. So we could say to Canelo, well, because Canelo, of course, is the darling of the WBC. So if Benavidez has that belt, he can say, well, so Canelo will come up and fight me for the WBC belt. Benavidez said he can still make 168 as well. So did Morrell. So I don't know. I get the impression these guys are trying to find an angle where, and maybe if Canelo really doesn't want either of them, they can fight each other if they're both at 175 and they end up with some belts. They can carve out their own piece of history. I'm absolutely a believer in that. I always remember Amir Khan sort of hanging around for way too long, waiting for either Pacquiao or Mayweather. Have your own career. Don't put your career in the hands of other people. Say to them, you want to fight me? No, okay, I'm going off and doing something else. And in fairness, these guys have done this. I just think it's at a weight that's probably not, it's not necessary for them to move to 175, just that all the belts are tied up at 168. Canelo won't fight either of them. So, yeah, I mean, I see it as being a reasonable strategic move by Benavidez to go to light heavy. How's this fight going to end up? I think Benavidez, I think it will be a boxing match for the first 4, 5, maybe 6 rounds, maybe half of the fight. Then I think Benavidez, probably by the 6th round, by the mid round, certainly will have taken over. Will be that half step quicker. Will be firing the first punch and probably landing the last punch as well. I think Gvozdyk will be tested in the old ticker department as well as in terms of skills. He can match Benavidez for skills. I mean, Gvozdyk is a very, very skillful fighter and was, like I say, winning rounds off Beterbiev before he got stopped. But in terms of youth, pressure, physical strength, and even experience, I think Benavidez has now got some decent experience in those 28 fights. I think he will stop Gvozdyk in about 10, 11 rounds. Yeah, 9, 10, 11, that's sort of part of the fight, towards the end of the fight. And we might even see a retirement from Gvozdyk, like on his stool, pulled out by his corner. That's the impression I get. But this could be, first 3, 4 rounds, certainly a chess match, boxing skill for boxing skill. But I see Benavidez is the one that's going to try and put the pressure on. And Gvozdyk will end up trying to counter. And I just don't think at this stage of his career, Gvozdyk has got enough for a full 36 minutes of cat and mouse, counter punching, matching the guy for ambition, matching the guy for physical strength. Even though Benavidez is coming up from 168, I don't think the weight will be a main issue for him. I just think he's got a bit too much of everything at this stage in their respective careers. And I think Benavidez will stop Gvozdyk in about, like I say, about 10 or 11 rounds. So that's my prediction. What's yours? Leave your comments below, please do. And yeah, I'm looking forward to reading your comments. Subscribe to the channel if you're new, if you don't mind. That'll be a big help to us. And also hit the like button as well, because they count them, apparently. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time as always. I'll get you later. Bye for now.